real hit maker for you with some really interesting stories. Brand new ITL, lots of information. You're at the place, Pensado's Place.
Appreciate you hanging out with us today. We got a great show for you today. Fun-packed, thrilling adventures, lots of things blowing up, exploding, car chases.
It's the Avengers.
I'm still stuck on the Spurs that we were talking about earlier.
I know.
Good grief. How you doing, Herbert?
I'm good. I'm still laughing at the film we ran last week of
what Leo did?
Yeah, I still play it at home. It's crazy. What a great thing. But a great week as usual. Great guest here. And
yeah, I'm very excited about DJ Frankie.
Absolutely. Let's get some of our homework out of the way. What do you think?
I'm ready.
All righty, guys. You know the usual drill. Let's make sure you get in touch with us at Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel, YouTube/Pensado's Place, and you can get in touch with, like, and subscribe. It's always important. We always just want to say hello to our friends and family. Vintage King. Hey, Vintage King. Let's say hello to those guys. We love those guys. Also, our Facebook and Avid our Facebook friends. Actually, Avid's got a really cool initiative where our audience can go to Facebook, talk to their students, and so on and so forth. But anyways, hello to all their Avid folks. Go to their websites and check out what's going on. Lots of stuff there. And as usual, you can aggregate lots and lots of information at pensadosplace.tv. We have the pleasure of coming to you live from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles, as usual.
Yay.
And lots more information about that next week. Some of our new buddies, Indaba.
Oh, I love Indaba.
Great company.
I just like saying Indaba.
Great company, does great things. Go to their website and sign up because you want to be involved there. Go to our website for information on upcoming mix contests where Dave's going to be judging things. And one of our really great Pensado partners is Gobbler, something that you like to use.
I do.
Their website is up right now, and we think they're really cool storage and transferring files and backup and so on and so forth. Anyways, we got a great guest, got great stuff for you. Even more information next week that we're going to roll out really specifically. I say we throw to the ITL and give them some more information.
Let's do it. Run it, Will. Take it away, Dave. Hey, what's up? Okay, what I'm about to say, I'm kind of half kidding, kind of half serious. You can figure out which half is which, but I'm going to talk to you about pads today. Pads, I don't know. I love EQing live drums. I love EQing vocals. I love EQing kicks and snares. Pads are kind of like the tablecloth at a fine dining restaurant. They're kind of necessary to give you the feeling, but they just don't taste very good. They don't do anything. Or pads are kind of like old underwear. They feel good. You just don't want anybody to see them, you know. So I'm going to kind of show you some techniques that I use for pads to make them fun, to make it fun for me, and to also kind of do different things. Because a pad in urban music, a pad kind of is a bit of a glue thing. It kind of fills in a space down there where there's a little gap in the instruments. It's that space just above the bass, just below lower frequency synthesizers, and it can kind of, they're very useful. They kind of, think of them as, like a lot of times we use the term string pad. They can be just, I don't know how to describe it, but they really do serve a useful purpose in music, but gosh, they're just boring to work with. So I'm going to show you a song that I mixed for Jill Scott. J.R. Hudson produced it. I think Jill co-wrote on it. I know J.R. did. And I love this song. It's so ethereal, and it just, her last album, it just kind of sets the tone for the record. So let me play a little piece of the song, and then we'll jump into, stay awake now. I know pads are boring, but a lot of this, as always, can apply to other things. I'm going to show you some techniques that you could apply to anything, but I'm just going to show how to spruce up some pads. So here we go. This is called Missing You, Jill. let me solo the pad so you'll know what it's doing. This is the way I did it for the record. Okay, here's what in the track again. Now muted. For the sake of our discussion, I'm gonna turn it up a little. Without it. This pad is kind of really cool because it's a little higher than some of the other pads, so it allows us to kind of hear it. Okay, the first thing I'm going to show you is just EQ. Now, there's a frequency, sounds to me like it's right around 800, but I'm gonna EQ it out a little bit lower, and I'll let you hear that. I lost my damn cursor. There it is. I like that better. I took this frequency out. Okay, so EQ, obviously. Now, another thing I like is Ozone. This is Ozone 4. That's a preset I use. Let me show you what it's doing. Now, I'm increasing some frequencies I don't like, so let's pull those back. Looks like it's somewhere around, probably around closer to 800. Let's hear that in the track. Okay, you can see that I'm adding some stereo width. I'm adding a little bit of compression and a little bit of top end, and then I'm spreading the top end a little bit. I like that a lot. That's a preset I use a lot. So now I want to show you. One of my favorite plugins, Dr. MS, and he's got a new version out, version 4. I'm going to show you version 3 because I haven't loaded up version 4 yet. So lazy. But basically, this is one of my favorite MS plugins. So what I've done here is I've made a couple of things. I've done a couple of things. That is, I've reduced the level of the mid to 0. So let me show you what's going on there. In effect, I've removed all the middle information, and then I've widened it a little more, and then I've put in this low pass filter. I just like what it does. It takes off a little bit of the frequencies that I don't need. Let's listen to that in the track. Gives it a nice dulcet tone. Look that one up, that's a good one. Anyway, it gives it nice roundness to the tone and keeps it out of the middle a little bit. Okay, so let me show you another one I like a lot. Oh, you know what? Let me show you one more thing on the Dr. MS. Let me add an effect to it. Check this out. I'm gonna exaggerate it. the track. The effect's a little much, but you get the idea. It's one I've shown you before. It's called Big Pan Hall. And it's just a delay going into a reverb that has a little bit of width to the reverb. You can get the width in the plugin, or you can get the width by adding a widening plugin. Okay, let's move on to our next one. This one is the BX plugin. I'm gonna add some ping pong to it. Now ping pong is I'm taking a delay. I'm EQing the delay, a little low end, a little top end added, a little bit of reverb. I think lower quality reverb sound better for this. I'm only using about a little less than half of the reverb, and then what's going to give it kind of the neat, kind of ethereal thing is just a chorus, kind of like Enigma. So let's show you this. Let's mute Big Pan Hall, Dr. MS, and let's go to the BX Digital. Okay, here's without it. Okay, I'm going to take out a little bit more on the mono mid section. Notice the bass shift in the high end. Okay, now to that I'm going to add the ping pong, which is just a basic delay, kind of ping-ponging around through a reverb and a chorus unit. Okay, let's hear that in the track. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, now one last one, just your basic simple. I'm just adding a couple of harmonizers. Let me show you. I've shown you this technique before. What I'm doing is I'm going through a delay, mostly dry, but the tiniest bit wet from the delay. Then I'm taking out the middle again with Waves plugin called Center, which is another one of my favorite middle side techniques. And then I'm sending it to a harmonizer. Now the unique thing about this harmonizer is the left side is going from 1 to 1.1. The right side is going from 99 to 0. So there's a little movement on each end, on each side. You can do this any number of ways in other workstations. That's all we're going to add. So let's add that. Check that out. Without it. Exaggerated. I love that. Let's see what happens if we add a little reverb to that. You hear the reverb? Let's put that in the track. Remember, it's a little loud, but I want you to hear it. Anyway, Dave, why don't you put any compression on that? Actually, I like it kind of riding in and out. It just I've got so many things moving and swirling in this mix. If I had everything compressed, it would just be a big solid wall of mush. But the way JR constructed the production and the tracks, things just kind of float in, float out. So we want to preserve that character. But anyway, that gives you like what, 5, 1, 2, 3, yeah, about 5 things to play with, and hopefully add a little bit of fun and interest to working on pads. EQs aren't incredibly important on pads because the producers 99 times out of 100 have struggled and really worked hard to get the exact perfect sound. Now, if you're doing your own tracks, of course, you might want to consider what we discussed as the function of a track or a pad earlier in this episode, which is to kind of add a little foundation, fill up some frequency spots, and give you just a feeling of euphoria, I guess. They can be a little lame if you're not careful. This pad happens to be a very aggressive one, and as always, apply these techniques to other things. And I hope it didn't put you to sleep. I know this is a boring ITL about pads, but hope you liked it. I'd like to welcome our guest, DJ Frank E. Frank is a friend of mine and someone I have a great respect for, so I know you guys are going to learn a lot today. Thanks, man, for coming by.
Welcome aboard.
I know you've been just crazy busy. We've been trying to get you on now since what, 91, 92?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah,
early
somewhere
90s.
before Rodney came.
That wasn't him. That was somebody else. Man, for those of you that aren't familiar with, I know everybody knows his work because he's had for sure huge records, several huge records. But if you're not familiar with his approach to making records, it's fairly unique, and I think we're going to dig into that and get you some information today. But let's start off by I know the story about how you kind of got going. You really had no idea you were going to ever be a DJ, much less and then of course you grew up in the hotbed of hip hop and DJing in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and tell the story about how I call it the Korg Triton story. Tell that story for me, man.
All right. Well, in high school, I walked into this party, and in the back room of this party, there's just rappers and producers making beats on a Korg Triton.
And at this time, you had no interest in music.
I mean, I'm in Denver. I've never seen anything like that. I thought all the artists wrote their own music, and it just happened.
Sure.
You know, like they got in there live, and it was, you know,
Yeah.
didn't know any background on how music was created. So I see these guys making music, you know, for the first time, and I walk in, and that was like the aha moment for me, you know. So I spent the next couple years kind of doing like the go to school, get your degree, plan on getting a job, you know, the standard route for Americans at the time, you know what I mean?
Stuff that makes
what I
your
was
parents
supposed
proud.
to do, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And so I went to school in Boulder, Colorado, and I finished a 4-year degree in finance, but like in my spare time, I would just dig in on the internet and look for ways to find more about, you know, music creation. So I ended up, I kept coming back to it. It was always in the back of my mind. It was like a calling. So I literally sold everything I owned one day, went on eBay, bought a Korg Triton. You know, I sold my refrigerator in my room. I was at a Rockies game one day, and they had these baseballs that were left over from like the fans' day, you know, like fan baseballs. I took like 4 boxes of them, like 50 each, and sold them for $5 a piece on
how
eBay.
cool is that?
And basically traded them in for a Korg Triton Studio. Two
I love
grand.
that
or something.
story,
It was
man.
like $2,500. It was down, I
That's
scraped
commitment.
every penny.
That's commitment, isn't it, Herb?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I realized I didn't know what to do with it.
Then you had to start learning.
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
you?
Then I bought some turntables on credit and started DJing parties. So that's kind of how I got started, and it was a long road, but I just kind of felt it out along the way and put a lot of time into it. And every waking moment that I wasn't in school or, you know, studying finance, I was doing that.
There's a couple of websites that everybody should check out, Indaba, of course, and then PMP, Production Marketplace, is a great website. Explain why that's a great website for you.
Man, that was like
This is right after the Triton.
life-changing website. Yeah, so I was a subscriber to. Do you remember Scratch magazine?
Of course.
Before it went out of print.
Yeah.
I was looking through the back of a Scratch magazine randomly one day, and found this this ad for PMP Worldwide. And at that point, I had spent like you know the websites where you spend $100 to talk to an A&R and you put in 3 tracks online and they give you feedback. I had done all those with no success. I tried everything. So I had $500 in my bank account. This is like 2005 or 6, I think. And I see this. I check out this website, PMP, and I was like, screw it. I'm gonna throw it all in. So I put like 4 or 5 beats up there, and submitted to Juvenile when Mike Caren was working on the Juvenile project. So I submitted some tracks, not thinking too much. I was submitting like 50 Cent, and I was like, come on, you know. But nothing was ever. I never got a call back. But then I was playing golf one day. This is like 6 months after signing up for PMP Worldwide, and Mike Caren called me from 818 number, and I was like, oh, that must be the wrong number. So I didn't pick up, and luckily he left a voicemail. So I called him back and gave him like my sales pitch of why I'd be a great producer. I told him I was a DJ and everything. So it's just, man, that website changed my life.
Wow.
And who would have thought? You know, in Denver, it's hard to reach people.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know about LA or New York or Miami or Atlanta or anything like that. So
When I was in Atlanta, I was giving tracks to assistant promotion people,
Yeah,
their
exactly.
secretary, thinking I'm doing something. I understand that frustration, man. But in between that little period, you were already kind of getting a reputation as a pretty good DJ in Boulder, Denver area, right?
Yeah, definitely. I started my DJ business, and I was DJing like sorority parties to start. And I moved on from there to like local bars in Denver, in Boulder. And then I got like a couple residencies in Boulder. One at the Players Club, which is my first gig. Yeah, getting $50 on a Friday night to go DJ and maybe a drink tab or something.
Sure.
And I knew all the sorority girls, so they would hire me because I would bring like 20 or 30.
How'd you know all the sorority girls?
Because I was DJing their parties to start.
I thought you were one of those guys I used to hate.
No. So
He looks kind of handsome and debonair, Herb. He could be one of those guys that got the chicks, and we didn't.
It works for us.
I'm blushing. Thank you.
Let me ask you something. I'm fascinated by this. I guess maybe it just looks this way, but it seems like DJing is a great. Let's don't say the word shortcut because that's totally inaccurate. But it seems like it's a great portal into producing. Like you think of Pharrell. You think of all these guys that started out as DJs. Explain to me why is it, and should we encourage our audience to go start DJing, or is that time period past?
It's not past, but the most important thing that I always tell people if I'm working with them, I say that you need to think like a DJ. You know, whether you're a songwriter or whatever, thinking like a DJ is what helps me. You know, and kind of.
You mean in the sense, like you described, your DJ work as an instant method of finding out if one of your tracks is going to work or not. You'd slide it in.
Exactly.
Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really play. You know, people are afraid of it's midnight and you throw a brand new track on. They're not going to know. They want to sing along at that point. But you can kind of like build this catalog of things that work in your head. You know, tempos that people like to dance to, tempos that you can do this type of rhythm. It's like it's a giant idea base.
So
you know what I mean?
that's what gives DJs an advantage?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, every time I'm short on inspiration, I just get my DJ laptop out and think back to like, well, this worked at this time period. Maybe I could bring it back in a new way. Or, you know what I mean?
You're getting feedback.
Yeah.
So you know it works
Yeah,
just
you
based
have
on
a
the feedback.
crowd there, and you instantly know if they don't like a song. You kind of just get instant feedback on the dance floor.
It's kind of interesting because I've always maintained that all the bands I played in, all the dives I played in, kind of did the same thing for me on the mix tip. It was either do good or get bottles thrown at you. It's a whole different level of mixing.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Are you able to, when something doesn't work, identify what makes it not work, or is it just that it didn't work in a macro sense?
You hope you can figure it out. You know, you have 400 people in front of you, or 1,000 people, or 10,000 people in front of you. If something's not working, you right away. But you mix out of it, or do throw on like your go-to record for the night or something. You know what I mean? So, but beyond that, thinking like a DJ includes like searching for music. You know, always being up on the newest music. But then, you know, sometimes you get too far ahead and you get like too cool, you know, and you're way ahead of your audience. which has kind of helped me realize that fact has helped me in the top 40 world, where like you can be 6 months ahead, but you can't be 2 years ahead. You know what I mean?
I agree. That's a very important thing. I agree 100%.
So sometimes you start digging into the blogs too much and thinking you're too cool for
Sometimes
music.
I've gotten ahead of the world and with my mixes, and I paid a heavy price for it.
Yeah.
Did you ever think, like back when we first met, one of the common bonds we had was you being from Denver, and that's where Beatport got their start. I think you and I were the only two people in LA that were listening to Beatport. Could you ever imagine? I mean, like remember, I fell in love with Wolfgang Gartner. Nobody knew who Wolfgang was back then. And
You were up on your music.
we were like swapping things back and forth. It's just the explosion is just much needed, and also just probably the best thing that's happened to music in a long time. But
Definitely.
it was like I was telling everybody get ready, but I didn't believe it myself. But man, it really happened, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. It blew up.
Are the Beatport guys still doing really well? Did they sell it finally?
I'm not sure that they sold it, but they're doing incredibly well.
Yeah.
They're a couple of them, Brad and Sean, my friends. They're DJing as the manufactured superstars now, and they're like touring the country doing that thing.
Is
But
that right? That's
it's
fantastic.
awesome to see just how America has embraced electronic music, but even bigger than when it first blew up. You know.
The only to me once they solved the problem of making it sound good during the daylight hours with no lights, it was over then. Because how many times did you go into a record store and buy a song that you heard in a club the night before, and then you play it in daylight, and you're like, they gave me the wrong record. This can't be the right record.
What was I thinking?
Let me take this back and get the right record. No, that is the right record.
all the
Once that got
substances had worn
solved, it
off.
was over. and then once we got stars in that space, you know, like the obvious guys, I'm not gonna name them all, but that did a long ways towards selling it too. You said your DJ laptop, that caught my ear.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot about that. Describe what a DJ laptop is to me.
My
I got
DJ
my
laptop-
turntables.
Okay.
But I'm good with turntables. I'm not good. I got them.
Yeah, well, I used to carry vinyl, you know, when I first started, and I would carry crates and crates of vinyl. It'd take like, you have to get to the club an hour and a half early,
Exactly.
you know. But then this program called Final Scratch, made by Stanton, came out, and the guy who actually taught me how to DJ Petey, turned me onto that, and he was like, "This is
year
the
was this?
future." This is 2006 when I was really getting heavy into DJ. Maybe earlier than that. I want to say 2005 is when I was on Final Scratch, and that was prior to Serato, which is the number one now. Well, there's all kinds of them now. There's Tractor and all kinds of great programs. But so I kind of did like a hybrid setup where I would bring like 100, 200 records in case my laptop crashed, you know, because I was running on a Linux system, if you can believe that,
Oh, wow.
on a PC, which was supposed to be more stable than Windows at the time. So
So
anyway,
you were programming your own stuff?
no, it was just the
Linux
program
is-
was
Oh, it's already
Linux
written
based,
for
yeah.
Linux.
So I did that, and I mean, talk about a load off your shoulders, showing up to the club with just 2 records and needles and a laptop. It was like revolutionary for me, and I was like, I can't believe these other guys aren't catching on to it. It actually took a long time to catch on. Then Serato came out, and I think like Jazzy Jeff, you know, caught on to it. But anyway, my DJ laptop is now, everyone has a DJ laptop.
He's the first
you know
person
what
I
I
ever
mean?
saw use Ableton too. Those early YouTube videos he put out on Ableton were pretty cool. So when you said, I'm showing my ignorance. When you said your DJ laptop, it wasn't really a DJ laptop. It was a laptop that you use for DJing. Okay.
Really?
You know my excuse, right, Herb? You want to say it or you want me to say it?
You go ahead and say it.
I got medical excuses for this.
So it's a laptop solely dedicated to music. You know,
Oh, gotcha.
it kind of stems from the scare of getting a virus on your laptop, but I guess I switched to Mac now, so there's not as much of a fear of that. But dedicated to collecting music, downloading music, and playing it live. You know.
If you'll indulge me, I got some specific questions about some specific songs. You know I always do.
Yeah.
But before we do that, you said something. I'll paraphrase because it really caught my ear, and I thought, God, that's genius. You said that if you've got a great drum track, you can put anything over it, and you're way farther along and closer to getting what you want than trying to start with something else and then add the drums to it, and they may or may not work out. Or may I butchered your quote, so so this is your moment to straighten out
right.
the millions and millions of people that are watching.
Well, yeah, I come from more of a hip hop background. You know, when I originally started producing and learning from other producers, it was based on hip hop. You know, that style of production. So drums were always something that intrigued me. Great drum sounds, sampling, and just finding unique sounds that kind of just supported the music, you know, because for hip hop, it's, you taught me this, the music is here and the drums are up here, and on a pop mix, you kind of push the music up, you know what I mean? So a great drum track is very inspiring for musicians, especially if you bring them in the studio or you're pulling up synth sounds. To have something solid in the background to start with is always great.
Yeah, for me, it's like, and nobody cares what I think, but I'm gonna toss it in anyway. For me, the drums are the way to determine credibility, you know, in a project, and then also they're the one thing that you can use to get the sensation of power into the listener's ear. Like without drums, you got jazz and folk music.
Absolutely.
And with wimpy drums, you got wimpy jazz and folk music. and you and I have a lot of the same musical heroes, and one of the things that stands out is they all have a musicality. Like you look at Timbaland, you look at Pharrell. They're known for things, but really they're very musical and they have very good. But the drums are what we tend to. That's kind of interesting.
A quick question for you. So, staying in that vein where drums are really important to you as a producer, when Dave and I were talking about you as a guest and sort of pre-briefing, you have a monitoring philosophy too that sort of stems from your DJ days, right? In terms of what you listen on. Explain how you like monitoring when you're producing.
Oh, while I'm producing, I try to do it at lower levels now.
Oh, you know? That's not the answer I
I
wanted.
know. I mean, I have some really nice speakers in my studio, but yeah, I go between like the 10 and the 5, and then I try to, whenever I'm, you know, conscious of my ears getting tired, I go back down to 2 and try to switch them to the smaller speakers.
Are you still doing it? What Herb and I were talking about earlier. Are you still using like high-end reference monitors, but just trying to use like smaller clubby type speakers to work with?
I mean, I have.
You've grown and become successful.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I started
Just
off
lie and say you are.
In Denver. I was fortunate enough to work on Boxer T5s on a
right.
big like room all to myself. So I would leave there with my ears ringing at the end of the night. But you know, I kind of got scared. You know, I didn't want to get tinnitus in my ear and all the damage that comes with that, and especially night in and night out of taking a monitor full blast. You know what I mean? You have a couple drinks, and by the end of the night, you forget the monitor's on full, and you just wake up the next day regretting, you know,
Why your
with the
work was
ring in your ear.
diminishing
Yeah,
right
exactly.
around that period.
I tried to switch monitor sides so I could balance it out, balance the damage.
Another thing too, a lot of people don't know this about you, but and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I thought it was pretty fascinating because I am the world's worst businessman, but it's okay. I got Herb Trowick in my life, but you have gone out of your way in several interviews to stress the importance of the finance and the business, and I thought that was really incredible and a service, because it's easy. It's not easy, but it's easier to master the art side of this. But if you don't have the business side, you can't afford a Triton, and you got to go sell stolen baseballs.
Exactly.
So, can you and Herb kind of discuss that? Because I'm an idiot when it comes to this, but you have been successful at the business, and what's your advice to people from that perspective?
Well, I mean, one of the main things that I take away from it as far as a financial standpoint is we're in a business where you can get a windfall of money, and then you're not thinking about the future, and you're expecting that same amount of money to come in forever, you know? And so kind of a little bit of financial planning always goes a long way.
Yeah.
And then just in general, just being professional and sharp, I think goes a little bit further than, you know, especially on emails and stuff like that. Business school never allowed me to just write back with a quick answer, you know. Always watch your tone in your email and you know, be careful of how you're representing yourself and your business.
Great nugget right there.
Yeah.
And in terms of I noticed that musicians, because in their mind things come so easily, they don't understand that this hard drive with this music is like a few $1 million sitting there. It's not a hard drive with just some zeros and ones on it. That's your and because that creation was so much fun to do, they don't add value to it.
Right.
And is that something that that you realized early on that, okay, look, I'm a commodity. I have value. You're going to pay a fair price. Not too much, not too little.
Definitely.
Does Adelio help you with that, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that's more of the management side for me as far as picking a price point, you know what I mean, and kind of branding yourself in that way. But you want to be fair. You don't want to hit people over the head too hard for tracks, and you want to work with them again, and you want to feel like you're giving them a great product for the price, and they'll come back to you. And you know, as a manager, you know what I'm talking
Well, I mean, my mantra is that you teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, your responsibility and obligation is to give full value for whatever it is you define. And if you meet that, people are happy with what you do.
Absolutely.
But sometimes it's a cop-out when musicians try to foist that responsibility onto other people. You should know. Doesn't matter if you have a manager or not, you should know this is a short career if you mismanage that part of it.
Yeah.
And you can be uber talented and mismanage that part of it and be out. So in today's world, you've got to at least have a working knowledge. And it's better probably with your manager, and like Dave and I do. We look at it as partnerships, you know.
Managers.
I mean, you have to integrate everything in and try to hit a goal. And by the way, as a manager, I always say this to all the artists, I'm a percentage of what you make.
Right.
I need it to be really working, right? So just cop to it and go for it.
And he says that more often now than ever.
Absolutely. In fact, should you
there's-
be mixing right now?
What are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing here?
I always tell this story, guys, and this is a true story. Elvis Presley had a manager named Colonel Tom Parker, and Colonel Tom Parker took 50% of Elvis's earnings. And Elvis was asked one time about that, and he said, "She's a bargain. That's a bargain." The guy just got me $1 million movies at a time when $1 million was like worth $10 million. You just can't overestimate the price of great management. So let's change the subject a little bit.
Cool.
I'm sitting around Larrabee one day and I hear Right Round come on. And I knew the original for not the reasons you want to tease me about. That video was all over early MTV, and I'm thinking, wow, that's really cool. Whoever did that, I want to meet and I want to mix for. It was you.
Right.
Man, two things. Would you consider that like the first thing that kind of made the world aware of your abilities?
Yeah, I mean that was my calling card in the industry.
And that was one thing. And number two things, well, how come I didn't get to mix that? That was incredible. That was better than the stuff you brought me.
Something that I kind of learned along the way. That was my learning lesson, where I was a writer on that song. You know, my original production was intended for B.O.B. And it turned in, the Smeezingtons, Phil and Bruno, who since blown up and everybody knows them now. They wrote that hook over another track of mine. And the whole story behind that is kind of crazy. It was intended for B.O.B. He was in Denver for a week working with me. He didn't like the track, so we sent it to some writers. They came back with that chorus over there, and I was like, oh man, this is incredible, but it needs to sound more like this. It needs to sound more electronic, And so I tried a couple versions, and that was early on in my career, and and I didn't quite nail it to what the full potential of that chorus was.
I thought you
so
did.
Flow Rider loved it. He recorded and we mixed my version and everything, but I always kind of knew in the back of my mind it was going to be something else.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that's the first time I heard someone actually try and put a little electronic into the hip hop world. No one had done that to that extent prior to that, had they? I mean, that's a hard question to answer. I'll answer it for you. That's the first time I'd heard people do it, but never right. And you picked the hardest song to add to hip hop, and it was incredible. I mean, that was a very successful song.
It was
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge.
I mean, that would allow me to get in the room with a lot of people that probably would have never picked up the phone in the first place,
right.
So
Get in the room as a producer or as a writer?
as a producer.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. Yep.
No, that was a great song. Drew will tell you I talk about that all the time. Sometimes I talk about it in less than glowing terms because it got too successful, and then there was a lot of bad imitations for a minute. Now it's smoothed out where that combination of hip hop and electronica is being done really, really well.
Yeah.
It's also being done really, really poorly, which leads me to my next question. it seems like you're uniquely situated for this kind of door you've opened, because the guys that are hip hop that try to add some dance elements, electronic elements, when I get those to mix, it just doesn't sound right. I have to fix the dance elements.
Right.
And then the dance guys that want to add some hip hop to what they're doing, when I get those, the hip hop part doesn't sound quite right, and I have to change all the drums. How in your mind, take me through the thought process. You're creating a song, you're sitting down at your DJ laptop, and you, first of all, do you work in Ableton most of the time, or do you work
Mostly in Ableton, yeah.
and then because of the drum editing functions and stuff, and then you're not sitting there thinking, okay, let me put these hip hop drums and let me do this. How do you combine the two so efficiently? Explain it in a way that I get better mixes to mix from now on.
Well,
These people that are not
I
doing
mean,
it quite as good as you.
Honestly, it's more second nature now for me, but I spent a lot of time studying people that I respected from both the electronic world and the hip-hop world, you know.
Would it be putting you on the spot to name a couple?
No, I mean, No ID, his drum sounds inspired me forever. Dr. Dre, obviously, he's famous for his drums. Kanye West, how dirty he gets his stuff, and the list goes on the hip-hop side, and then the electronic side. I mean, just everyone on Beatport, you know, not only are they producing that stuff, they're mixing most of it themselves, you know.
And mastering.
And mastering it and doing everything, and just to come from that world and understand from a mix standpoint and a musical standpoint, and you know, it's incredible what those guys are doing. So I really spent a lot of time studying sounds that I loved and incorporating them into my sound.
And when you say, anytime I ask a question you don't want to answer that's stupid, just call me on it, or give Herb that look and he'll call me on it. But when you say studying, you define that verb for me. Or gerund, I guess. Are you just like listening casually? Are you focusing in on something when you listen, and do you listen to it repetitively over and over and over?
Yeah, over and over. Literally trying to dissect what snare sound is that. Is it layered with another? Is there a hi-hat in there under that snare? What's making it pop so much? What's under that kick? Is there an 808, or is that just a regular sample kick drum? You know, is that from a break, or is that a combination of things? And really analyzing, kind of like reverse engineering the song.
Oh, great,
you know what
great
I mean?
way to put it.
So I kind of started getting better. You know, I started on the Triton, and the drum sounds on the Triton were not what I was hearing on the radio. You know, I came to find out.
That's an epiphany.
You know, yeah, that was a big one for me.
Sure.
So, you know, kind of realizing, my process was realizing that most of the hip hop drums were samples. No one ever taught me that. You know, how the heck was I supposed to realize that?
Didn't I give you some samples?
Yeah, you did. I love
good.
your drums.
Good.
But it was a little too late. No, I'm just joking. So kind of, you know,
I
studying,
worked hard on those Kieran Carpenter drum sound samples.
They're incredible. I still use them.
I studied those.
But, you know, coming from almost like a recreation process, in my mind at least, of what's the number one, what's in the club? 50 Cent, right? Huge number one song for I don't know how long. Those drums make people dance and bring energy to the record that you can't describe, you know? What is it about those drums? If you break it down and you just hear the simple clap sound, which I think you actually have and gave me, I'm like, you know, what is this? It's nothing special, but the way that you put those drums together is so important. And why can a bad sound technically work in a great mix? It's not really about how great the sounds are. It's individually. It's how they all come together, and kind of realizing that by breaking it down in your mind. You know?
I don't know for you guys that haven't sampled much, but there's this phenomenon that Frankie will tell you. You can hear a drum sound in a song, and you're like, oh, that's the one I want for my song. You find a spot, you sample it, you throw it into your song, and it sounds like crap.
Yep.
I mean,
Happens
doesn't
all the
that
time.
freak you out?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like a marriage of the sounds, you know.
I know.
Sometimes it doesn't work out.
We're a couple minutes from Batter's Box, but do you find yourself still going to clubs to sort of inform yourself of what's going on and what's happening? Is that
definitely
still
do.
important in your process?
Yeah, every time I'd get a chance to go out and check out like someone I think is kind of the next thing.
Right.
Especially in the electronic world, I'll try to see them. LA is great for that. You know, you can go and see all kinds of talent.
And what is next as you look at the landscape? I
Man,
know that's a really broad
It's
question.
a really tough question. I'm kind of struggling that with myself right now. Is like, I knew what was next when Beatport was, you know, getting hot.
Right.
And then like the blog rock, you know, kind of like the Foster the People and the Gautier,
Right.
that kind of stuff came from like Hype Machine. I would dig in Hype Machine. But I can't put my finger on what is for sure the next sound. You know, there's dubstep and electronic, and then you got this resurgence of a lot of hip hop stuff and
I'd be
rock.
real
is great.
happy if I never heard another dubstep song.
Yeah. Too much for you to process.
My gosh, it was the coolest thing ever when it first came out.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in, man. Things just get. You remember her like 20 years ago, a great song in the United States would stay on top of the charts for like 4 or 5 weeks. In England, a song would come up and be gone like in hours. And now the whole world is that way. It's like things get burned so fast. And
So I heard you're a golfer,
I am.
correct?
Yep.
You like sports.
I love sports.
You like baseball?
I do like baseball. I used to be a pitcher.
Get ready.
Okay.
All right. Tee your arm up.
Hold it on.
Let's roll the batter's box credit. And stepping up to the mound is Dave Pensado.
So I'm going to name some sounds and some tracks, and you tell me what your go-to synthesizer is for those, okay?
Okay.
Bass.
Juno 106.
Oh, I love it. Piano.
Ivory.
Okay. Strings.
Philharmonic.
Oh, those are expensive. Guitars. Do you ever mess with those?
Yeah, but I prefer to bring in live guitars. It's hard for me to get them sounding how I want without a live guitarist.
Nice.
Yeah, they sound better than dead ones. Pads.
And then,
See what I have to put up with all
when
the
you see my
time.
delay, it took me like 30 seconds to catch up.
Listen, it happens to everybody.
Well, I mean,
What are we on now?
pads.
Pads, Prophet 5.
Okay. So far, we don't have any plugins.
Yeah, not a lot of plugins.
Rhodes.
The Native Instruments Rhodes, the electric piano,
Oh,
and then I also have a Juno keyboard that I use for Rhodes also.
cool. Your go-to setup for writing and creating a song from scratch.
Instant Inspiration, Sylenth 1 plugin.
That's what you pronounce it? I never know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I go back and forth. Silent, Sylenth. I don't know.
Okay.
Depends on who's in the room.
Just spit on you. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And then, in your opinion, it can be plug-in or the best synth for under $1,500?
Oh man.
It can be a used price.
Okay. I would go with
If you only had one synth.
if I only had one, I'd go with Silent. There's just so much you can do with it.
Cool. And that's it, Herb. Give him a grade.
Oh, it's an A. It's interesting because he was not like a baseball player, but kind of like Tony Parker, the guard for San Antonio. Precise, good decisions, hit the open man, easy basketball. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
My man.
Just like a little addendum. Do you ever use like Massive and
Absolutely.
virtual synths?
Yeah.
What when you use those your virtual synths? Which ones like on some of the hits? Are there some that we would recognize? Where you used them like. Oh, go ahead.
I'll give you an example of on the Enrique song Tonight. I used Oddity, which is a great plugin. I use it for the Dutch sounding lead. It kind of has like a rubbery sound to it. It's very unique in that way. The portamento setting on there is incredible, and it's just got this unique sound. It's supposed to be emulating the ARP Odyssey, I believe. But I've never heard a real one. I'm gonna buy one soon.
On Airplane, did you use the same sound?
Oh no.
What did you use on Airplane?
On airplanes, live guitars, bass, piano.
There's no virtual synths on that?
There's a stab that was in there, but that was Alex's stab.
You were gonna say something?
You know what we got in our corner office? We have Drew Adams. He's man it. Should we get over and get some questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do
Drew,
this.
what you got for us?
I got a question from Bogdan Dreamin' to DJ Frank E. Right Round was your big hit early, but how long were you producing until you got your first placement?
I started producing in 2002. I would put that date on it, and started. That was when I started dabbling, but DJing taught me so much more. So then I was DJing from 2001, and then I got that call from Mike Caren like summer of 2007, and signed with him 2008. But that Christmas, I was producing my first placement. Christmas Eve, I was in the studio working on the Flow Rider tune, Me and You, and it was a Roger Troutman sample.
Wow.
And that came together in one night, sent it over, and Flow Rider recorded it. And before I knew it, Fabian was mixing it. Fabian's been on your show.
love Fabian.
Yeah, he's
Sure.
incredible.
Great guy.
And funny story with that, actually, I was in the club DJing like a few nights later, and Mike calls me. He's like, "We're mixing the record. This is your one chance to give comments on it." So I'm in the DJ booth like 12:15, peak time. I had to throw on an hour-long mix and leave. I almost got fired. I drove home from the club at midnight to go listen to some mixes and give them my comments, and I was like, I gotta go.
Oh my God.
Please make this the best mix you've ever.
Wow.
Give me some information to tease Fabian with. What were the comments?
Oh man, I mean, I made the mistake of sending him the stems at full level instead of what like my rough mix. You know what I mean? So poor Fabian's there like trying to recreate the mix on everything that I had. So I mean, it came out great. He killed the drums and everything.
I love Fabian.
Yeah, Fabian's awesome.
I got a quick sidebar question too. Did you incorporate your songs during your DJ sets when you were starting off as a producer or producing?
I tried not to as much, just because I was playing to an audience that probably wasn't hungry for new music, you know? And I was trying to be kind to them, but, you know, I would sneak them in every now and then and kind of test it out, but more early in the night to maybe listen to a mix for myself, you know?
That's cool.
You got another one?
Yeah, I got another one from Stephen Ellis. How do you go about songwriting for your records? Do you work with a team? Is it purely submissions, etc.?
I have a team that I'm putting together right now, actually. Definitely looking for more submissions for that, but I found two really young, talented guys. One is a classically trained pianist, and he plays guitar as well. And so he does all the guitars and a lot of instrumentation on my records. And then I have this other young guy named, their names respectively are Mike and Trent. Trent plays guitar and piano. Mike is a drummer and a bass player. He programs insane drums and kind of, it's great to have someone in the studio you can bounce ideas off of.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? They're young and they're really up on top of their music, and we kind of work as a team of three. You know, the most recent records we've been doing has just been incredible. So
Cool.
Has any of that, the product of that relationship made it to the radio that I would understand?
yeah, well, the new single that we just did together was "Whistle" for Flow Rider.
Oh, okay.
So I've been with Flo since the beginning. You know, he was actually my ringtone before I even started producing like his first song. So
I've
So-
never met him. Is he cool?
yeah, he's a really cool guy.
He's from Miami, right?
Yeah, Miami.
Cool. From Thomas Nevels, how do you approach song arrangement, keeping it simple but interesting, and choosing sounds and/or layering sounds, drums? Thanks and continued success.
Thank you. Song arrangements, that kind of comes second nature to me too. You know, thanks to DJing, I just know like verse, chorus, probably skip the bridge these days and go to a big outro or do like a real short bridge, you know?
There's just no substitute for experiencing a live audience, as opposed to a dead one, and learning how they perceive music and want to consume it. I mean, they'll let you know instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's so bad about working alone most of the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Drew, last
Cool.
one if you got another one.
I do. Question for both of you guys, actually, from Giomi Kasu. What's the best, for Dave, what's the best tip advice plug-in you got from a viewer? And I guess the same would apply to you, Frankie.
It's Giomi?
Giomi Kasu, yeah.
Giomi, gosh, you know what? I wish I had time to think about that because there's been so many. I'm blessed to have you guys, you know, sharing stuff with me. The one that comes to mind, I was talking with one of the guys here, Bob, the soft tube FET compressor. A cat hit me up and said, "You got to try this on bass, Dave." I don't know why I did, but I did, and it was great. I've been recommending it to everybody.
Cool. Anything from you, Frankie? Did anybody ever hit you up online?
Someone put me on to Metrum, which is a kick drum plugin. You can design your own kick drums. And that's been really great for me.
Especially for attacks. I
Yeah.
love that thing to add attacks on kick drums.
Really cool stuff in there.
That whole company's good.
Yeah.
They make a lot of stuff.
So the last question is, you got to come back because we've just scratched the surface.
I would love
Will you
to.
do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man,
you guys are awesome.
Thank you so
guys
much for
having
coming.
me.
Well, I got some
Thanks,
ideas we'll talk
man.
to you
Love
about
you
for
guys.
sure.
And I wanted to ask, I had a whole ton of airplane questions.
We'll have him back to ask those. Is that okay?
I was thinking about it.
Oh, you look like you're about to get emotional. Just like, oh wait, get a napkin for Dave. He's
I
going to
live
cry.
for this stuff, Herb.
I understand.
Hey, man, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Will you come back soon?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Say goodbye, man. It's been a good one.
You don't have any outro stuff?
Nope.
You sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Positive?
Good stuff coming. Yep.
Okay. Hey, guys, before we get too silly, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Impossible.
It's too late now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. And one of the things to take from this is the amount of effort and the amount of work and just the love of doing it. What made DJ Frankie great was not that he wanted to study and dissect all this stuff. He just couldn't help it. He had to. And if you've got that kind of passion, apply it like he did, and let's see what happens, all right? See you next week.